Hey, let's see. Says it's loading. There we go. Think it's working now. All right. So, thank you everybody for joining me tonight. For those that are here, give it a couple minutes for other people to come in. So, I was on a show known as The Gun Guy today. The guy who runs it, Guy Relford, is a Second Amendment attorney here in the state of Indiana. Lives down by Indianapolis, and it's an excellent show for those of you interested in what's going on with our Second Amendment and what's happening with that. That actually directly relates to one of the topics I was going to talk about, which is House Resolution 5717. It's called the Gun Violence Prevention and Community Safety Act of 2020. What it actually is pretty much a dissolution of your Second Amendment rights. It means that it will require a federal firearms permit in order to purchase a weapon, period. In order to purchase a handgun, a firearm, a rifle, you will have to have a license. And I've had people, well, some states have that. Okay, that's other states. Here in Indiana, we do not. We do not have that, and nor should we. I am not in favor of this legislation. I would vote no on it. I would mobilize people to call their legislators and vote no on it. If you haven't had a chance to check out this abomination of legislation, I recommend that you do so. It's H.R. 5717, and it wants to institute a 30% tax on all firearms, a 50% tax on all ammunition. This is above and beyond sales tax. This is an across-the-board federal tax. This tax would be poured into gun violence prevention. It's a way to siphon more funds for those that are anti-gun. It is absolutely backed by the Bloomberg anti-gunner crowd. It's horrible. Read the whole thing for yourself, please. House Resolution 5717. The other thing that I'm going to talk about that, like I said, I was on Guy Relford's show. I recommend you check it out. It was a good interview. I'm a fan of the guy. I watch him. It's good. It's a good show. He really touches on some stuff that, of course, gets ignored in the mainstream media. He talks about real and present threat to our Second Amendment. I do want to say, put that out there. I apologize for the lateness of the video. Our food was supposed to be ready at a certain time, and when I got there, they were like, "Oh, sorry about that. Your food didn't get put in. We're gonna take care of that now." Let me turn off the volume on this. I always seem to forget that. So, I had a great interview with him. He gave me an opportunity to talk about one thing I do want to say that I mentioned in the interview that I want to put out to you is imagine for a moment, let's look at the legislation like HR 5717 and other types of legislation that have been introduced, especially look at Virginia, for example. Now, imagine if our federal government was completely controlled by the Democratic Party. Give that some thought for a moment. The House of Representatives, the Senate, and the presidency were all controlled by the Democratic Party. All of this legislation would be law. This stuff would have been skirted through. And I noticed, are you hearing anything about this Fox News might be reporting on it, but that's it. None of the other mainstream media is talking about this legislation that's trying to be shuffled through while we're distracted with the other events that are going on. And I think that it's important for people to talk about other legislation that's trying to be pushed through. When you hear a lot about Mitch McConnell not bringing things up in front of the Senate, this is the kind of legislation that we're talking about. This is the kind of stuff that he's not going to vote on. Imagine if we didn't have a Republican Senate. Imagine just that. We can keep the president for a moment. Imagine if the Senate was Democrat controlled. Imagine that. And there were enough to override a veto. It's a terrifying thought. Look at all the open borders policies. Look at the anti-Second Amendment policies. Look at all of the things that our legislators are trying to do. And I do want to say our current representative, Pete Visclosky, he voted for this 5717 legislation. He is an anti-gunner. The majority of those running on the Democratic ticket right now for this seat are also anti-gunners. Even the ones that claim, oh yeah, I support the Second Amendment. For example, let's look at McDermott. McDermott claims to be a firm supporter of the Second Amendment. Oh, I have my concealed carry permit. But yet he has a direct quote saying, well, I support red flag laws for those people that worry you. The people that worry you? Really? That's what it's for? The reason, I'm going to tell you, I do not support red flag laws in their current format because they are unconstitutional. They assume guilt before they prove innocence. They take your weapons from you, and then you have a hearing that's usually 10 days later, and you can go to court and you can prove your innocence / debate the charges that are against you, the claims from those who are worried about your behavior. My concern is at what point, what is the proof here? What is the line that people can say, oh, I saw him with a gun? People see me with a gun all the time. I bring my weapon out to go to the range. Speaking of the range, a little off topic just for a moment. Did you know that all the ranges are closed? All the outdoor shooting ranges from DNR, Department of Natural Resources, are closed. My buddy and I went to go shooting the other day, and they're closed. What does this have to do with? And I just want to point out that the DNR put out a thing saying, oh, all state parks are going to be open. Go enjoy our state parks. Just remember social distancing. What does closing a gun range have to do with the current situation? It makes no sense to me. I am not happy about this. I'm not happy about that at all, because we were going to go shoot. We were going to have a good time. We wanted to get our sights lined up, and he has a rifle he hasn't had a chance to try out yet. It was going to be a good time. And get there, got the big gates across. We're like, what's going on here? Look at the sign. All gun ranges are closed until further notice. Check the DNR website. Man, we were not happy, but everybody running on the Democratic ticket for the primary at this point has said in one way, shape, or form that they are in favor of restricting your Second Amendment rights. I want you to really think about that for a moment. Really consider what that means. Every single one of them has expressed support for some form of assault weapons ban. Now remember, assault weapons is a term that doesn't have a clear definition. They are constantly trying to figure out what that definition is so that they can, pile stuff in there. Now, I will say 5717, HR 5717 it tries to define assault rifles all right. It defines assault weapons as just about any single shot rifle. Uh, 22 rimfire is kind of excluded. I highly recommend you read it yourself. It basically lumps everything in as an assault weapon and then outright bans assault weapons. It's absolutely ridiculous. I recommend that you read it. It's quite a read. It's not quite as extensive as say the CARES Act that's been passed, which I'll do a video on that as well, explaining my take on it and what you can learn from it. Break it down for you, stuff like that. I think that representatives need to do that. I think that they need to explain to us this massive piece of legislation, what it is, what's in it, why they're voting for it, why they're voting against it. 5717, I would wholeheartedly vote against. Absolutely, there wouldn't even be a discussion. Once I read it, I'd be like, nope, ain't gonna happen, Captain. Not on this ship, as my mom used to say. It's just not something that I believe would be beneficial to this country, to the state of Indiana, to District 1 at all. So the next thing that we can talk about is the election. Again, it's been postponed, the primary, for if you haven't had a chance to find out yet. The May 5th primary is now postponed to June 2nd. Now, the Indiana Election Board has opened up mail voting for it. I'm just not sure about that. I've heard some very, very disturbing stories about mail-in ballots being lost, being misplaced, suddenly showing up at the last moment, and elections being won and lost because of so-called absentee ballots now. And at one point, absentee ballots represented as a small fraction of the voters. Now, with this opened up to everybody, I'm just concerned that there's the potential for massive voter fraud. I don't know that there's anything that we can do about it, unfortunately. It is what it is. I finished my Vote 411 candidate questionnaire / survey. They should be uploading it to their website soon. They're like Ballotpedia, but it's called vote411.org, I believe. Seems to be a good little group. Their emails are a little outdated. They said, thank you for filling out our, I think it was 2015 candidate survey. So they might want to update that. But other than that, good little group. Filled it out, sent it in. I'm going to publish my full answers to that later on, either tonight or tomorrow as well. And you guys can see what I'm about, a little bit more about me. I think that's what I'm gonna fill the rest of the time block with. I'm gonna talk more about me. So, as many of you know, I was a correctional officer for a number of years. I was a truck driver for a number of years. I did my first job, though. That's what I want to talk about. I was a volunteer at the Humane Society in Michigan City, Indiana. I want to say I was like 13. I might have been 14, but I went to the Humane Society because I wanted to work with animals. At the time, my mom, we couldn't have any animals, any pets. So I decided that I wanted to be around animals. I love animals, so I wanted to do what I could for them. So those of you not familiar with Michigan City and the various animal rescue organizations here, there's the Humane Society, and then there's what's called Freed's Cat Shelter. It is a shelter that is exclusively for cats. They have lots and lots of cats too, all different personalities, all different colors and types, many cats.
I went to the Humane Society. I went to Freed's Cat Shelter, and I volunteered at both after school and on weekends. And it was very, very memorable. It really kind of set the tone for me and work ethics, and just it was an amazing experience. The lady who ran the Humane Society, her name was Joan. Absolutely incredible one. I wish I could remember her last name because I'd look her up, see how she's doing. Uh, but at the time, she was in charge of the Michigan City Humane Society. There is at least the building that I was in. She was like the manager or whatever. I don't know if she moved up, but after that, we moved down to we moved down to Louisiana. My mom decided that it was time to move. It didn't matter what I thought or wanted. It is what it is. We moved down to Louisiana for a little, fairly short amount of time, less than a year, I think. We were down there, and I attended school down there for a short period, and I actually waited until I'm trying to remember. It's been a very long time, but uh, yeah, we went from Louisiana and then moved back up here, I believe. Uh, I know at some point we moved to Alabama for a short period. I worked at Wendy's. Uh, no, that's right. That's right. In Louisiana, I worked at Wendy's. That's what it is. And I worked there for a little while, and then we moved to Alabama, and I worked at Burger King for a little while, and then we moved back up here, and that's when kind of I started on my real life track, as it were. I started getting real. I don't want to call fast food not a real job, but I should say, jobs that lead to careers in areas outside food. I did work at Domino's for a little while as a delivery driver. I was actually like an assistant manager there for a little while. Uh, I did. I was what's called a galley hand on an oil rig, which means I worked in the kitchen. I took care of the laundry, did all that. That's where I learned how to make omelets. I learned how to cook for a large number of people. The cook that I worked with was very, very cool guy. There were some issues with some stuff that happened, and I ended up uh, quit quitting that job because my car broke down. I didn't have a ride. My ex-wife cleaned out my bank account. Just life, life of a late teen guy, and then the whole Coke machine thing happened. So after that, especially after I got out of the whole Coke machine legality situation, we moved. That's when we moved up here. Myself and the mother of my girls moved up to Indiana, got married. I started driving. Well, that's when I worked at Domino's at that period, and then that's when I went and got my CDL. I got my CDL, began driving a truck. I did that for a number of years. I drove for several different companies. I even, for a short time, I did flatbed. I did what's called van, which is dry van. I never did a refrigerated unit or reefer unit, but I did do flatbed for a short time. I was hauling containers for a short time. I worked for a local company here where I had to get creative on my logbooks in order to make sure I got everything uh, back and forth on time. It was interesting. So after that, I became a correctional officer. After I was a correctional officer, I was real estate for a little while. Uh, that was that was interesting. Uh, and now here I am. I'm running for Congress, right? So what can you expect? Let's say I win the primary and I win the general. What can you expect from me as your congressman? Well, first of all, transparency. I believe in transparency from our government, the whole government, including your representative. I want people personally. I want people that tell it like it is, that will stand up to those in power, that will say, hey, this is garbage. This is not what the people want. This is not what the people need. Why are we being made to vote for this? I believe in telling people the truth. I believe in telling you, hey, this bill is trying to shuffle a whole lot of money to a whole lot of people. They're going to tell you it's for this, but here's the truth. Here's what it's about. I'm going to lay it out for you. I try to be very, very careful about the things that I share on my social media. I have made mistakes. I have had people say, hey, that's not 100% accurate. And I have, taken the heat for that. I've either deleted it in one case because it was just completely wrong. But in most cases, I'll say, okay, here's what I meant to say. I think that's important. I do think that's important because you get those people that get into office and some don't believe that the rules apply to them. Other people believe that they can just do whatever they want and people should just be okay with it. Then you have those people that make mistakes over and over and over, and they try to cover them up. They hide evidence or delete servers, destroy servers, smash up things with a cell phone. We could go on, but you know what I'm talking about. We need more transparency. We need more just brutal honesty from those that are running for office, for those that are in our government. But let me be clear. There's a difference between being honest and being uncaring. It's okay to tell someone, for example, let's talk about gun laws, for example. Other than the ones that are doing it for political motivation. I mean, I'm talking now about the people, that truly believe that outlawing all guns is going to fix what's wrong with us. That outlawing weapons is going to fix the crime in this country. You have to be empathetic to them. You can't just say, "Well, you're treading on my rights. Get the heck out of here." I can understand where they're coming from. I can understand what drives that. I don't agree, but I can still be kind. I can still be empathetic to them and inform them about why I disagree and why I'm, again, going to vote a certain way on a certain bill, like voting against HR 5717. I've exposed it for what it is, and I've had people say they're doing it for all the dead children. You don't care about the children? And that's obviously the most common attack for those who are in favor of the Second Amendment is, oh, you don't care about the children. I have children of my own. Of course I care about children. Of course I do. We all do. The reason we are so focused, so adamant on our Second Amendment rights is because we want to be able to protect ourselves, our families, and children, for example, of other families, of friends, of our neighbors. We want to be able to take care of others. That's the point. That's the whole thing around it, because we don't trust the government to take care of us. If you look up videos and stories of what happened post Hurricane Katrina, right? If you look at what happened after the hurricane came through and a few days after it happened, there were people hurting and killing each other for scraps of food. That is why the Second Amendment is critically important, because the government didn't swoop in and save everyone. The government isn't going to sweep in and save everyone. Anyone who believes that is unfortunately delusional. It is our responsibility to protect ourselves and our families. And in the case of societal breakdown, for example, after a natural disaster like Katrina, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to ourselves, to our family, to our friends, to our neighbors, to take care of them and to take care of us. The government isn't coming to save you. If you look around, let's look at this bill, for example, the one that just passed through, right, and got signed into law. Look at how much is in that bill for people and places other than you. There's like $2 billion in this bill, right? How much of that is going into your pocket? How much of that is taking care of you because you can't go to work? Because you are not an essential employee, right? Yes, there's a provision in there for unemployment, and I'm glad there is. Anyone saying that Republicans think that the workers shouldn't get paid, no, I'm a Republican. I am all for better unemployment insurance. I am the only Republican to openly state that I am against right to work legislation, running for the first district, and not flip flop or skirt the issue. I'm against right to work because I am pro worker. I am not pro corporation. While I believe that corporations provide a large number of jobs and they are unfortunately a necessity of the economy in order for us to have the number of jobs that we do, I don't love corporations. I like small businesses. I like local businesses. I try to give all of my business to local businesses. I drive American. I buy American when possible. There is way too much waste in our government. If just for I don't spend a lot of time defending Donald Trump just because there are plenty of people that do that. But I am going to say this. If you look at the budget that Donald Trump released, right? The media made a big deal about the cuts to Social Security and Medicare and all that, right? He's cutting this, he's cutting Social Security, he's cutting Social Security. If you actually go in and you look at that budget, he wasn't cutting benefits at all. Not $1 of benefits was cut. Not one. What was cut was administrative costs. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bureaucrats that are unnecessary. Layer upon layer upon layer of bureaucracy. The administrative costs are astronomical because there are so many people doing the same jobs. Jobs that in many cases could be automated. Jobs that in many cases are completely unnecessary. Money that, if properly used, could either be utilized for benefits or at the very least, let's get these people actually getting caught up on claims. There's an idea. Instead of 5-year waiting lists for people who are disabled, how about we get more people to process these claims? How about we get more judges to get into hearings? How about we not start with automatic denial for most of the claims? It's a ridiculous system, and Donald Trump is trying to cut the waste from it. I'll say it again. I don't agree with some of the things he said on Twitter. I don't agree with some of the decisions he's made, especially when it comes to the Second Amendment. But the man tries to cut some waste, and the media attacks him incessantly, puts a spin on it in order to create the maximum negative light for him. And I think that's wrong. Imagine how much we would know, for example, if the media actually did their job. You would have the media explaining in detail, this is what this bill does, this is what that bill does, right? Unfortunately, we can't count on the media anymore. We are the news. Social media has made it possible for us to talk to each other on a large scale. It's made it possible for us to share things. Now, unfortunately, there is a great deal of misinformation out there, and I'm human. There have been times when I've said, oh, wow, that's crazy. I'm going to share that without checking it first. I apologize for that. I'm not infallible. That said, I do my very best to make sure that something's factual before I share it to my social media platforms. Uh, I think that that is absolutely critical from our elected officials, especially. They have to tell us the truth. And they have to be willing to engage with us. If you look at all these elected officials, you look at the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments, these people have staff, right? They have staff that run these accounts. They don't answer you. They don't listen to you. There are people who have, I've looked at some of their feeds, I've looked at some of their comment sections, and they don't get any replies. They don't. That's one thing that I will change. Positively, absolutely. Anyone who knows me, who has reached out to me, knows that I answer. I answer my social media. That's one thing that I will carry through into a representative. I want to tell you that I may not be able to monitor personally every single social media account I currently have. There's, congressional stuff that's going to have to be done. I'm not going to be sitting there on my phone all the time. But that said, I'm going to make sure that whoever is on that account, whoever was responsible, whatever staff member I have handed that account to, is engaging, is absolutely on point with getting back to the people that have legitimate concerns, that are worried about, hey, how's he going to vote on this? What's he going to do on that? And that's missing. That's missing from so many of our elected representatives. They just post a thing and then never check it again. I think that that's a tragedy. We have got to get into this century. We have to get to this decade, to this year, as far as the beauty, the connectivity that current technology can bring us with social media. Why aren't more of our representatives focusing on that? Why aren't more of our representatives utilizing that? Social media is more than just, I'm going to post this, you read it, minions. Because that's how it comes across. That's exactly how it comes across. Many of these people seem to have forgotten that they work for us, that they are in office employed by us. That's why I treat this as a job application. Here's who I am. I'm going to give you 100% unvarnished truth. You decide if you want me to go to Congress and represent you. That's really what it comes down to. I don't believe that some of the people running for this office understand what's at stake here. The 2020 election is going to be one of the most critical elections in the history of this country, because regardless of how you feel about Donald J. Trump, let's look at the alternatives. Realistically, honestly, for a moment, let's look at the alternatives to Donald Trump. You've got used to be called Sleepy Joe, now he's Forgetful Joe, right? It's sad. The man has no idea what's going on. I don't know if he suffered an aneurysm, which is completely possible because he seems very, very different. He's not just a gaffe machine. The gas we can handle. It was always, did he really say that? Now it's legitimately a concern. Like, I wouldn't want this man to have his finger, to have the nuclear football. That's just the way it is. I wouldn't want this man in charge of our country, period. I'm talking about Joe Biden at all. The other alternative, if he makes it, which I don't even know if it's possible. Is it possible still for Bernie Sanders to win the nomination? I don't think he has enough delegates, but who knows? The other alternative is Bernie Sanders. I'm not going to bash Bernie. I just don't want him to be president. I don't think he'd make a good president. This is a guy who can't even hit a boxing bag. I mean, and granted, maybe you don't have to be physical to be a good president, but what has one thing I'm going to say about Bernie Sanders, he railed against millionaires until he became one. He sold out with the DNC, ended up with another house out of it. Had he been a man of principles, had he been a man that truly believed in what he was saying, when they cheated him out of the nomination, because the DNC did, everybody knows that now. If you don't, look it up. After the DNC cheated him, he came out publicly and backed Hillary Clinton. Not I, not I. I'd have been like, yo, dude, check this out. This was stolen from me. This is the kind of dirty people we're dealing with here. It's a tragedy. It is a tragedy, which is why I simply don't trust him. It's just that simple. We can talk about his policies all day long. We can talk about what this would do or that would do. The other thing I don't agree with is Medicare for all. I think that there's a better solution. We have a better solution for universal health care right in front of us. I want everyone to be covered. I want everyone to have good quality insurance that doesn't break the bank. They're able to pay for prescriptions. They're able to pay for all these things. But unfortunately, I don't think Medicare for all is the answer for that. So that's what we have. Those are our options. I believe that Donald Trump is absolutely the best candidate for America out of those three by far, like by a huge margin. I think DJT loves this country. I believe that he is going absolutely to get reelected, but we have to get out there. We have to vote. You have to vote. Vote in the primary, vote in the general. All this stuff about, oh, you declare your party and I don't want to declare my party. Look, it's very simple. I want you to really, really think about if the Democratic Party was completely in charge of our government. Think about it. Really, really think about it. They have publicly stated that they want to give illegal immigrants health care. Every single candidate on that stage, remember? Raise their hand, every single one. Every single candidate wants gun control. Joe Biden has actually talked about Beto, I'm going to take your AR, O'Rourke, being his policy guy on that. Are you out of your mind? They're not even trying to hide it anymore. They're not trying to pretend. They're not trying to hide it. They're very blatantly anti-Second Amendment, and they're also blatantly anti-First Amendment. I love to talk, if you haven't noticed. I can talk for hours and hours on end if you let me. But I like to be able to say what I want to say, not a script that someone has prepared for me, not a list of talking points, not a politically correct speech, but really, truly what I think, what I believe. Our First Amendment is absolutely under assault. If someone doesn't agree with what you say, you're an ist. If you're talking about something that they disagree with, it's an ism. It happens all the time. It's not new. It's been going on for a number of years, but it's only getting worse. I am against all of that. You should be able to say what you want. You should be able to say anything you want. It really is just that simple. The ones that are running on the Democrat ticket, they don't believe that. They believe that there's such a thing as hate speech. They believe that there's such a thing as things you shouldn't be able to say. It's just the beginning of erosion of your freedoms. If you believe that the government is going to take care of you, that the government is going to give you what you need to survive and make sure that you're taken care of, and then I don't know if you heard her off screen. My wife said you better learn to make bread. You better learn some self-sufficiency skills, because the government is not going to take care of you. I'm going to end this very soon, but I do want to say one thing that we've seen with this whole virus, the pandemic, and the stay-at-home orders and stuff. I don't know if you've noticed, but there have been record numbers of sales at gun stores for guns and ammunition. In case that's not a sign for you, Americans value their Second Amendment. We value it very, very much. Now, the Democratic Party wants to take that from you. They don't even try to look at 5717. They want to take it all away from you. They want to ban just about every firearm on the market. And if you think it's going to stop there, you're very, very wrong. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. As I said before, imagine a fully democratic government and the types of bills that they would be pushing through right now. Just look at the bill that Nancy Pelosi tried to put together for the coronavirus with so much waste. So much waste. $4 billion to universities in that, or excuse me, to museums in that bill. $4 billion for museums. Museums, which in general have multi-million-dollar grants that the board of these museums are usually worth millions of dollars on their own. Nobody gives a damn about these museums right now. We're worried about trying to feed our family. This is not the kind of stuff. They're showing you how distant they are from the American people. They're showing you their elitism. It's up to you if you choose to see it or not. It's up to you if you choose to say, wow, they really are out of touch. Or whether you go, no, I think they really care about me. I do. It's your call. So I'm glad you took the time to watch me, and I will be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Sorry for the delay this time. It happens, right? So thank you. God bless you, and God bless the USA. I think I messed up. There we go.